Hello, and welcome to your CNET Tool for Lab 5 demonstration video. In this week's lab, I'm going to create an external style sheet called style.css, and then we're going to use that to apply styles to our web page that we created last week. We're going to do some basic selectors, we're going to modify some attributes and their values, we're going to learn about hex color codes and how to use them. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before you get started, you're going to want to open your lab 4 index.html, and you're going to make changes to that for lab 5 as well, right? And we're going to create our new style sheet. I'm going to move this over to the side in a second. We're going to add some stuff. We're going to add this quote from my favorite author, or at least one of my favorite authors. I think it's a really great quote. We're going to add that as a paragraph, a block quote, and using the pre-formatted text tags to the body of the web page, just to show you how they display differently. Then we're going to create our style sheet. We're going to link it, so we're going to use an external style sheet, right, that I talked about in the lecture. We're going to link it to our index page, and we're going to, within the rest of the lab is going to be in that style sheet, right? We're going to learn how to implement comments. We're going to create some styles, and it's going to be great. And then we're going to import it into GitHub and into our AWS instance. But before I get too carried away, I want to show you something that I didn't show you last week. Last week, we wrote all the code for index.html using GitHub code spaces, which is totally fine. And in fact, you could do that completely for the entire course, no problems. However, I mentioned there was another way last week, and I didn't show it to you. And the workflow's basically the same, but it's a little bit different. GitHub code spaces, after all, is just Visual Studio code running in a container in Azure. But here's the other way. I've already installed Visual Studio Code here in my Windows 10 virtual machine, and this would work just fine in Windows 11. But if you need to install it, there's instructions in Lab 4. You can just do it through the Microsoft Store. Just search here, which I think I did this last week. I don't remember. Yeah, search for Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code. There we go. There's the app. And then just boom, you click to install it. I'm going to open it. And in fact, it's already kind of here. I'm just going to pin it to my, I'm just going to click and drag. Pin it here. And yes, I've already got a command line open with an SSH connection into AWS, just to make life easier. Now, a couple things you're going to want to do when you have this locally, and you're probably going to want to use this on your home computer because everything's just going to sync here, is you're going to want to connect it to your GitHub account. So just go sign in. I'm already signed in. And once we're ready to do things, we want to clone a repository. So we're going to clone our remote repository. You just click Clone Repository, clone from GitHub, say yes, allow, open, there we go. So we've authorized it. And oh look, there's my repository right there. Now where do I want to store it locally? Again, it depends on where you're working. I'm just going to stick it here in my CNET 204 folder in my documents. And yes, I would like to open it. And there it is. And I'm going to say yes, I trust the authors because, well, they're me, right? And look at that. There's my index page I wrote last week. But this is local, right? I can still do everything we did before. We can preview it. I should be able to preview it. We can still do everything we did before. It's pretty awesome. I don't see the preview right now. We'll find that later. It's not a big deal right now. And when we're ready to push our code, we're going to see a couple extra steps, but it's really not that complicated. I say a couple extra steps, it's like one extra thing you got to do. It's stupid easy. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our external style sheet. Oh, no. We're going to use that quote, right? And you can copy paste this off the instructions. So right here, at the end of this, we're going to add that quote first as a paragraph. And I can't actually copy paste, so I'm going to pause and it'll just magically be there when I'm done. Hold on. Alright, it's not going to magically be there. I cheated. I opened it in the browser, the lab instructions, on the desktop, or on my virtual machine. So I'm going to copy that. Just going to minimize that. I'm going to paste it in here. And word wrap's not on, so let's fix that, because that's going to drive me crazy. We're also going to do this as a block quote. There we go. And using the pre-tag, there we go. So we can save that. Hold on. Alright, so I was looking for an option that was in our GitHub code spaces environment that is not here, and it's apparently called Live Preview. So if you just go to extensions here, we can install it. Just search for Live Preview, and in fact I'll get rid of that and I'll go through that again, right? So click on, not there, extensions, Live Preview, and let's install that. Look at that, it's installing. Sorry, it's installed. It's there. It's just there. We can close that now, and now we can show preview. And isn't that awesome? It's just like using code spaces, except it's on my virtual machine. This could be on your laptop. This could be on your desktop. Whatever. It's there. Didn't realize that was something I had to install. I guess I installed it before. So I made my change here for that one thing. This is a handy thing because this might limit the number of commits you need to make. And we can just open that whenever we want. We can pull it to the side. We can do what we want with it. So we got our quote. Now we're going to create our style. So if we there's a couple ways you can do this. You can click New File there, our style sheet. I stopped mid-word. You can click New File there, or I can right-click here and say New File, style.css. And there it's created. And it's already showing up here. You see U, so M means it's modified, U means it's new. That's in our source control, our Git. That's great. Also, a side note, now that we've synced this locally for adding videos and stuff later, or pictures when we do that, you can just drag them into that folder and synchronize everything this way. It's pretty awesome. It simplifies things so much. So we created our style sheet. Let's link it to our web page. So we're going to go into the head. We're going to add the link tag, rel, so that's relevance, style sheet. Type is text/CSS. And href is hyperlink reference. We're going to use a relative link here, style.css. So as long as style.css exists in the same folder as our index.html, by using a relative hyperlink like this, it doesn't matter where those two files exist as long as they're in the same folder. So they're going to work locally, they're going to work when we push them into GitHub, they're going to work on our server when we pull them in AWS. That's great. Having it in a standard place like that and using relative links, that's how we build internal web pages. And if we go to our browser preview, well, nothing's changed because we've written nothing, right? But it's there. It's all ready for us to go and start doing things, which we're going to do immediately. So first thing first, just like every web page you create has to have a comment with your name and student number, so too does your style sheet. And every style sheet you create, which is really going to be like 2, because you're going to use this one for your labs and your assignment 1, and then you're going to create a new one for your new for your assignment 2, where you build a new website. We're going to worry about that later. So there's our comment. Now we're going to learn about our first selector. Body. That's the body selector, right? And as soon as I hit enter, look at that, it formats everything perfectly for me. Background, color. Now this is one of the really cool things about VS Code. As soon as I hit the colon, it comes up with a color picker right here. Isn't that awesome? So remember all those hex color codes I told you? You don't have to worry about it as much, right? It's all right here. And I'm going to try to pick something that's going to be easy to read. Let's go with this one. I think that's going to be okay. And will it give me the hex code? There. So if you just click on it, whoops, just click on this, see, it'll give you the different codes. Isn't that great? Now alternatively, if you don't want to use that, let's pull our instructions back up for a second. This is where I am. I gave you a color picker here as well that you can use. So you just, look at that, you pick your colors, and you can go and find different shades, lighter or darker within there. You probably want a fairly light color for your background. Dark colors are tricky on web pages. But, I mean, it's up to you, right? The extreme examples I'm going to use right now is don't use black on black or white on white, right? Make it something readable. Don't worry about this too much, because in assignment 1, you're actually going to get an opportunity to change all your colors and make everything a little bit nicer. And by nicer I mean accessible. To do, you've got a to-do list here. We're going to set the body background color to a color of your choosing, which I already did, right? I gave you black. There's one I chose. And that is awesome. Notepad++ didn't have anything like that. We're going to set the body text color. So that's just a color parameter. Yes, it's the American spelling. And let's set it to, oh, I don't know, there's so many options. Let's go with like a dark purple. Maybe that'll be nice. I don't know. And again, oh, dark blue. No, dark blue is going to be too hard to read. Again, if it's, let's see what that looks like. I want my hex code. And don't forget your semicolon. If it's too hard to read, we can play around with it later once we get it all done. And in fact, if we preview this now, that's kind of ugly. It's kind of hard to read. You can play with it later, and you're going to modify this in assignment 1, so don't worry too much. Assignment 1 we're doing in week 9, by the way. Let me just leave that live preview up, because that's actually kind of handy. So we're going to set the font using the font family attribute. And look, there's a whole bunch of things that come up. So I'm just gonna click that one. Now you notice it selects multiple, and in my lab instructions I didn't do that, and I probably should. What happens is it will use whatever one first in priority if it's available in that user's browser. And if it's not, it's just going to keep going through until it finds one. It's kind of great. So we're done with our body. We're going to use our heading now, our H1, and we're going to set the text align attribute to center. And we see that centered immediately. And we're going to give it a slightly different color. I'm just going to be lazy and go with black because there we go. That's actually not bad. And actually, I think if that blue was a bit lighter, the body color, text color that I used here would look okay for a heading. And just switch the colors with a lighter blue. I think that might actually work okay. But don't worry about it too much. So we centered it, we gave it a color, and we're going to uppercase it using the text transform. Uppercase. And look at that. Now our title is yelling at us. That's great. Finally, or not finally, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to add a pre-tag, our pre-selector, and we're going to set white space, there it is, pre-wrap. And look what happens with our block quote now. Before it scrolled right off the screen, now it's gonna wrap. It's gonna word wrap. It's a good thing. And one more thing. We're going to use a complex selector. This is the most complex we're getting into this week. So this is going to apply to multiple selectors together. You just comma separate them. So to our paragraph, our block quote, and our pre-tag, we're going to set the background, using the background color attribute, to something a little bit darker than what we already have. So we don't want that one, right? We want, oh look, now that we have that, oh, we could try that, Could go really dark, actually. Let's try this. And let's try setting this. I got some ideas. We're going to steal this color. I know I said I wasn't going to mess with this, but I'm messing with it now. And we're going to go lighter. Well, that's ugly. Maybe we'll just leave that as white. That's not bad. If that's a bit darker, that's actually not horrible. Yeah, like a really dark. Kind of like that. I kind of like that. For now anyway. It'll do. That'll do. So feel free to play around with these as much as you want until you're ready. It might not be great. It might not be the most accessible web page you've written, but it's there, right? None of this existed before. We just added all of this. So we're going to save that. We're going to save that. And now we're going to push it into GitHub. So we go to source control. We're going to stage our changes. We're going to add a commit message. Added. Modified. I'm just going to say lab 2. Just going to say lab 2. I can't come up with something creative right now. Oh, I thought that was going to happen. We didn't have to do this before. We didn't configure our username or email in Git. How do we do that? Well, if you look in lab 4, I told you how to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do it right now. We didn't have to do that when we were using code spaces last week. But we do have to do that here. So we just go to terminal, new terminal. Whoa, we got a PowerShell command line in our editor? Isn't that awesome? You can also just, you could change this if you wanted. I think you could change this to be bash. I don't know, PowerShell's fine. Doesn't matter for what we need. So git config user.name. Put your name here, right? Git config user.email. Put your email here as well. I'm actually going to use my my GitHub account. And now, let's try that again. So yes, sync changes. Now the only difference you might have to do here, sometimes, and you're going to have to be mindful of this. It should be there. It should be there. It's done. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to close it. Right here, you might see some notifications pop up sometimes if you've gone and done a bunch of things in code spaces and then you go load up Visual Studio Code at home. Things are going to be out of sync locally, right? So you just boom, click that, and it'll pull in all the changes from GitHub locally to your local copy of that repo. And there you go. It's pretty great. So all that stuff's in GitHub. We could go look to confirm, and in fact I'm just gonna go refresh, and hey look, there it is. And now we're going to pull it in to our Ubuntu VM. So cd, we're going to go here, git clone. It's not git clone, git pull. We need our passphrase. And everything's there. That's great. There's our new style sheet, right? And let's cp-r. We don't even need the cp-r. We can just cp star. I think. We need sudo here. Sudo cp star. This might not work. Look at that! So I didn't have to use the cp-r that I did last time. Cp star asterisk means everything. It's a wildcard, so everything in this directory, stick it in document root. There it is. Now, if I open this in my browser, which I have open somewhere, if I just refresh, it's thinking. Oh, hold on. I didn't set up DNS here. This is going to fail. This is going to fail. That's why it's failing. Give me a minute. So back to our learner lab. That's not it. We click on our instance. And we can just open this in the browser, right? Either the Elastic IP would work or our public DNS. Doesn't matter. And again, double check the URL. I was getting ahead of myself. I was trying to pull it from the instance using our fully qualified domain name, which we haven't done yet in the course. You're going to do that in assignment 1. Let's try our IP as well. There we go. The other one was taking too long. This should work too. If I just copy this, might be faster than opening address. Paste it in. Make sure you change the URL to say http:// Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this one. Oh, it's waiting to time out. There we go. I got it open in 3 things. So there we go. It's done. It's on my server. As far as submission goes, we go back to our instructions for a second. Take a screenshot of it running in your AWS running on your AWS instance and submit that to the assignment folder, the appropriate assignment folder in eCentennial for Lab 2. And you pushed your stuff to GitHub, so you're good to go. The one additional thing I would do is validate your pages, and you can use the CSS validator here and the W3 Schools HTML validator. And in fact, let's see if this works. Awesome. No errors found in my CSS. That's great. So, you see it running here. It works. Thank you for watching. Take care. Be safe. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.